pulled hands into the pockets of her dungarees. As she stood there, she imagined cattle wandering off their range through holes in the fence. "Waste of a day," she grumbled, itching to get back to work. The door to the office squeaked open and Papa stormed by. Gray whiskers on his upper lip bristled. "Last time I trust you to run things while I'm gone." "What are you going to do when you're too old to move? I'm all you've got." She followed him to their wagon, and they rode home in silence. The wind hissed past her ears. For days, she'd been running their operation on her own. To punish her for firing the foreman, Papa had instructed their only other ranch hand to take a few days off, letting Nara do all the work. Each night at dinner, she did her best to look fresh and spry, though she was beat. He'd lower his paper on occasion, squint at her to observe the effect of his lesson, but she'd just smile at him. He'd grunt in return, and that paper would go back up around his stubborn head. The wagon rolled into their ranch yard, sending the chickens scattering, and before Papa could stop the horses, she jumped down. Her boots dug into the ground as she stalked to the stalls to rig up her bucky board cart. She'd just as soon handle prickly wire and slivery pine posts than follow him inside for breakfast and more of his gripe. She yanked bridles and such off the wall and chucked them in the cart. Her mare waited in its stall, snorting and stamping its feet, wondering if they were going to get to work. "Hey, girl." Nara laid her head on its withers, breathing in that grassy horse tang, more familiar than her own smell. "We've got work to do." The mare's muzzle tickled her empty hand, looking for its regular carrot or apple. "I'll make it up to you tomorrow." She walked her mare out of the stable and noticed Mama had placed a Stanley bottle and pail of food in the horse cart. Her stomach growled, seeing the big helping of last night's pie in the pail. Nara turned and waved to the shadow in the kitchen window of their ranch house. Nara spent the rest of the day on the range, her fingers numb from cutting and pulling wire. But her insides hadn't worked out the resentment, so she drove her cart, bumping over cow trails stomped to powdery earth from the years her family had raised cattle on the scrubby land. The sun lay low in the western sky, using its late-afternoon shadows to play tricks on her eyes as she searched the boundaries of their land for more breaks. "Whoa!" Nara's heart clenched. Her face twisted in misery for the gruesome sight before her. A tiny wild horse struggled with all its might to free itself from the barbed wire fence. Every time the filly tried to break away, that devil's rope would clutch her silvery blue coat like it could pull it clean off her bones. Blood dripped from its bitty hooves and darkened the thirsty earth. Nara searched the horizon for the band of wild mustangs that left their youngest to the cruelty of this fence. It seemed a shame, for the foal was a rare blue roan. The grass around the fence had been stomped and chewed to the ground surrounding the little filly. The band had lingered a little while before taking off. Nara jumped down from her cart and placed one hand on her rifle pack, then hung her head. She imagined the mama horse stood with her newborn until that last moment when the swishing tails and flying manes of her brethren began to disappear into the hills. Only then would she have abandoned her own. Self-preservation is a strong instinct. A shot echoed in the valley, and a bullet grazed the metal fence with a spark. The little mustang spooked and twisted with violence to free itself from the barbed wire. "Ivor, don't you dare!" Nara hollered. Ivor pointed the barrel of his rifle to the sky and nudged up his hat, shaking his head as if she were a few eggs shy of a basket. With one keen eye on her callous neighbor, she rummaged around in the back of her cart for nippers, glad she'd been out mending posts. Cutting an animal away from a fence with just a buck knife was a bloody mess. She jogged over rough ground to protect the Mustang from the next bullet. "Nara, what are you gonna do? The band's moved on." Of the many times she'd wrestled one of her calves from the devil's rope, she'd always come away with a bruise or two. She stepped toward the Mustang. "Shh, I'm not gonna hurt you." Its ears shot back in a show of strength. A velvety muzzle let out a high-pitched cry for its mama. Tired little hooves stamped the ground. Blood matted its